Hello, I am Georgina and I'm going to take you through some things that I took with me on my gap year to Honduras with type 1 diabetes. Now these things made things a little bit easier to help me on my gap year. So I'm in Honduras, which is a pretty hot country, so I have these which are little flasks which help keep my insulin cold. Now this is a little thermal pouch which I use, and in here you can put little vials of insulin. So here is a little gel pack which keeps the insulin cold for up to 36 hours, and this just goes inside and you can put the little bottles in here. It's really handy, but obviously this just lasts 36 hours and the rest of the time this gel pack has to stay in the freezer. So whilst this is in the freezer, I use these fans. Now these fans are really handy as well because they have a little pouch and you can put the little bottles of insulin inside like this, and you can just pop it inside, put the lid on, and you can switch it on. And one of my favourite things about this is that it has a little temperature gauge on the top, so when you're looking at what temperature it is, it's right there, and once it's plugged in it's really handy because you can connect a battery pouch to it. There's a little pouch here at the side where you can put a battery pack as well. Now the reason why I have a battery pack with this fan is because I have a lot of power cuts in the area that I'm in, and so sometimes if I'm not at home then I need to make sure that my insulin stays nice and cold. So having the battery pack and connecting that into the wall as well means that if there's a power cut then my insulin can stay cold for up to 15 hours with the power being off, which is very handy. And I have two of these fans as well, so having both of them means I can switch between them both, because these fans, they're only built for being on for a few days. It's not really built for being on forever, or maybe even a few hours. It's not built for a permanent solution to solving insulin. But these things are so much better than putting my insulin in the fridge, because the fridge is always on and off because the power goes off quite regularly. But thankfully for me, it's not been off for me any longer than about 10 hours, I would say, in one go. Sometimes it goes on and off, but it's not really off that much for a consecutive time, which is really good. So sometimes when I'm on my pump, because I have the Tannin T Slim pump, sometimes there are things that can go wrong. So as a backup I have insulin pens just in case, because they're more secure, because if something happened to my pump then I can go back to these insulin pens. And I have my Nova Rapid and Tresiba insulin in the little vials in the fan that I have plugged in. So that's been really helpful. It's good for peace of mind just in case something does go wrong, because things can go quite wrong quite often, especially in a hot country like Honduras. So I have this bum bag. Now this is very helpful because it keeps the insulin at room temperature. So inside this I can put my pump, I can put my pens, and I can put in my extra insulin too. And this has been more helpful when I've been travelling, because the area that I'm in Honduras right now, it's up in the mountains, so it's not too hot to spoil the insulin. But for example, one time I was in a bit more of the lower parts of the country and it was awful because my blood sugar went really high. It went up to like 22. It was like that for about 6 hours. It was like that for such a long time because I couldn't go back to the hotel to get replacement insulin, replacement tubing, replacement everything. I didn't quite know what was wrong, but I didn't actually have this bum bag at the time. So it was very helpful for other journeys having that, because that day when my blood sugar went so high there wasn't really much I could do because I was in a big group. There were 16 of us and I didn't really want to go back to the hotel on my own, but no one else wanted to go with me. So I was in a new place, in a new country. This was probably the first month of being here, maybe the second month, and I didn't want to go on my own. The sun had set, it was dark, and it was a good 20-minute walk away to the hotel, so I sort of felt a bit stuck. So I suppose if I did have this bum bag, it might have actually helped me a bit better in that situation. But I just left it in the hotel because I had my spare insulin inside it. I just left it because I thought it would be fine, but oh well. you learn from these mistakes for sure, and I'm glad that nothing bad happened to me, and I'm glad that I can share that so that hopefully it won't happen to any of you. So I also have a spare tandem T slim pump. So this is in a little box which they gave me, and I can't open it because it's not considered my pump. It's almost like a loan or a lease type of thing. So the spare pump is in here, and I'm only allowed to open it if something bad happens with my own pump and if I'm specifically told to open this box. So there's sort of nothing I need to do about it, but it's good to have peace of mind. Just in case my pump does fail, I have this backup. But once I return to the UK, this has to be sent back because it's not my pump, it's just on a lease, if that makes sense. So going through the airport security, I had to make sure I had a little letter explaining this cannot be x-rayed, because that would have been a disaster, because sometimes the magnetic and the magnets in the scanners, sometimes that does ruin diabetic equipment, so like pumps, glucometers, Libras or Dexcoms. Sometimes it depends on the machine that they use, but yeah, it's better, like it's not worth the risk at all. So I'm currently on a Libre because for some reason my Dexcoms haven't really been working recently. So I have like a hybrid closed loop with my pump, but I wonder if maybe my Dexcoms might have been too close to an X-ray scanner or something, because the last maybe 5 that I tried, they just did not connect to my pump at all. They didn't connect to my phone, they didn't connect to my pump. I don't know what happened, but they've just been different from normal, because I mean I've been on this pump for almost 2 years now, and been with a Dexcom and the pump for about 1.5 years, so there shouldn't have been any problems, but hopefully they'll be fine when I start using the Dexcoms again. But one of the big tips that I have is because sometimes when you're packing, like I have these little lift bottles, it's hypo treatment, but obviously having a bunch of liquid like this is going to really weigh down the suitcase a lot, especially when you're flying. You'll have a weight limit. So one thing I find helpful is I have this big bag of dextrose powder, and so when I have an empty bottle, I fill this up a little bit. I put a couple spoons in here and fill the rest up with water. And this has been helpful for me because you get a lot more out of having a big bag like this than doing all of the little bottles. It's a bit makes more sense weight-wise when you're packing to go to another country. For weighing the suitcase down, it's not ideal. So those have been very helpful. However, I'm not quite sure how the airport would have thought about this if it was just on its own, because it might have been mistaken for some illegal substances that they thought I might have been carrying. So thankfully my mum wrote on this for diabetic hypo treatment, which was good. So hopefully if they saw it in my suitcase, they would have realised and didn't do anything, because obviously I had to keep it sealed so that it was obvious what was inside, and they might have had to have sniffer dogs, I don't really know. But the thing is, when you have your locks on the suitcase, obviously you do want to keep your locks on the suitcase just because you have medical equipment. You don't really want anyone stealing that. However, if the airport sees something like this and they have to come in and check your suitcase, they're going to have to break your lock, unless you have a special lock. So I have locks like this. So this little red symbol here, it shows the airports that they can use this special machine or special device that they can unlock the lock, check the suitcase and lock it back up again. And it's only airports that have access to that, which means that it's basically gives you a bit extra peace of mind that, you know, if they do have to open up your suitcase, they won't break your lock, and they can check, do all the things they have to do without you having to really worry too much about it. So that's been really helpful for me as well. It's just good for peace of mind, because there have been quite a few things in my suitcase, like a year's worth supply of diabetic equipment. It's quite a lot in a suitcase, so I had to split it over 2 suitcases, and I had the locks that helped me and having like the needles and all of the dextrose and things like that. it might have arisen some problems if I didn't have those locks, so it's been very helpful. And my last and final tip that I have is that when you go through security, you're actually allowed to have an extra carry-on bag with you on the airport. Now this is so good because they do check to make sure it's just medical equipment, at least in my case. It depends on the airline what size you're allowed, but I think if you ask the airline, then they'll tell you everything there is to know, and you're allowed to have an full extra carry-on bag just for your medical things. So you can put in some water, some snacks, dextrose, and all of your other kit like pump kit, you can put insulin, anything. So it's really handy having that as well. That was very much a good thing that I had when I was traveling, because I had so much stuff. Like my suitcases, they were like beyond the weight limit. Well, not beyond, but you know, it was like 23 kilograms I was allowed per suitcase. Both suitcases were 23. I think one was like 23.5 or something like that. And yeah, I was very much just on that weight limit, and my carry-on bag was the biggest I could have it, and I had thankfully my medical bag as well, because without that it might have been a bit of a disaster. So thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye just now.